Good morning. Welcome to the Long Live Alternative Parties podcast. Free Press Media Press Inc., an alternative parties books publisher, sponsors this podcast. I'm Andrew Bouchard.
Welcome to the Long Live Alternative Parties podcast. Today we have a Libertarian Party candidate, a woman named Angela Pence, who's going to tell us about the exciting things she's been doing. So welcome to the podcast, Angela.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing okay myself. How about you?
I am doing good. Considering, it feels like our world is burning right now. So, it's been very interesting navigating the just everything, I guess, that's been happening over the last several days, really. Between obviously the invasion of Ukraine to multiple things that have happened to the state of Georgia through their legislature, and then things happening all over the country and their state legislators, and then getting a climate report that came out yesterday talking about how we're like in this horrible place if we continue to destroy our earth, So it's like, oh my gosh, it just feels like so much is going on. So it's been very interesting from a political standpoint, of course, looking at everything that is happening and trying to navigate that, and also navigating just how everybody feels about that, and especially how folks here in my district feel about that. So it has definitely been interesting, and I definitely will take the time to say my prayers and thoughts are most certainly with Ukraine. What a horrible thing to be experiencing, right? So yeah, I am doing good, but I feel so many in the world are hurting right now, and that's truly heartbreaking.
So kindly give us an introduction to yourself, a brief biographical sketch.
Yeah, so like you said, I'm Angela. I am running for Congress as a Libertarian in the 14th Congressional District in Georgia. For people that don't know, that is the seat that is currently held by Marjorie Taylor Greene. I decided to step in last year after the Libertarian Party's convention in 2021 because I didn't feel like my district was being represented properly. And that really kind of falls back to just how I personally feel like Marjorie has represented herself in this district. So yeah, that I looked at it and I thought, well, somebody has to step in, and someone that can really talk to the message of liberty, which is of course the Libertarian platform, and talk about the things that are really a lot of Americans in general, but definitely people in my district resonate with and feel. So I made that decision and started kind of building up to it throughout last year, and then at this year's convention in January, I was officially nominated as the candidate. So that's how the Libertarian Party works. We have a primary in the sense that we have to go to convention and we have to be nominated by the delegates. So if multiple people are deciding to run, then the delegates will vote. And in my case, there actually was one other person that had decided to step in and, run for the nomination, but I ended up, like I said, with it. So, yeah, then it just kind of took off. Here in the state of Georgia, I have to collect 23,000 signatures to go on the ballot as a third party, which is interesting. The LP Georgia had won a court case in November, I believe it was. It was October or November. We had been fighting to have the threshold brought down, and we won in court finally on the premise that the petitioning requirement was unconstitutional. And then the Secretary of State came back and was like, no, it's it's not unconstitutional, and they appealed it, and the decision ended up getting reversed. So there for a good couple months, we went from having to get 5% of the registered voters to 1%. So that was, of course, much more doable than the 5%. But as soon as I was nominated, we hit the ground running and have been collecting those signatures and are trucking along. So, the campaign it's really taking off in a phenomenal way. Actually, I'm so glad I've really been received quite well by the media, actually, in reporting on what I'm doing and stuff like that, which is not very common for a third party. But in my situation, they have been fantastic. So they have been helping me get the word out, and we've just kind of been trucking along. It's turned into quite an interesting race, I will say that. My demographic is very interesting. We are one of the most conservative districts in the United States. Yes, yeah, we are a very conservative district. But it's interesting because through gerrymandering, they actually changed my district. So a couple months back, they changed it to include part of West Cobb County, which is more Democratic. But overall, over the last several years, a Democrat has not polled well at all. And, so it is very unlikely that a Democrat would win in this election. So you have a Republican she is being primaried. There's only one that I've seen that's actually really stood out, but I think there's like 3 or 4 that are trying to primary her. And then you have a couple Democrats that are trying to primary, and then you have just me, like, there in the middle. So it's been very interesting to navigate.
Sure. Mm-hmm. So since that court decision happened, was that in the middle of your campaign? So did you have to change the requirements in the middle of the campaign, or did that not affect it, or how did that affect your campaign if it did?
So it ended up changing it because when I originally decided to run last year, we were under the premise that it was going to have to be the 5%, these 23,000 signatures. So we came into it already looking at that because we didn't hold out much hope, quite frankly, that the court was going to rule in our favor, because that they typically don't here. But then they did. And so it was like this major, victory in a sense. It was like, oh my gosh, instead of having to get all these thousands and thousands of signatures, now I only have to get, 4,000 signatures. That's so much easier and much more doable, right? And then right before convention, they changed it again.
Okay.
So we actually LP Georgia had we do still have an entire slate, but we had a large number of folks that were interested in running for office so when they changed it like a week before. We lost several of those candidates because the requirements changed. And so that was disheartening. But for me, I was already committed and already moving forward. So it was just kind of like, okay, well, now we're back to square one, And so it wasn't a huge blow in the respect that we were already somewhat prepared to have to do that, but it did suck, to have it changed. So,
sure.
You got to take it. Unfortunately, you just have to roll with it, and that's what we're doing.
So are you collecting these signatures for volunteers, or are you using paid canvassers? How's that working?
So we're doing it through volunteers, and I actually, whether this has been the right approach or not, I was very firm in the fact that I wanted to be the one getting out and going and collecting signatures in my home. So I live, of course, the 14th encompasses several counties, and I live in Walker County, and I was born here, raised here, have lived here the majority of my life. So it was very important to me to be the one, in my hometown, in my county, and the next county over, where I know several people, to be the one going and asking for signatures. Now, for the rest of the district, I've had volunteers going out and going and collecting signatures, people that are from those areas that, know people and interact with them, so that it's an interesting beast, I feel like, when you're collecting signatures, right? Because you don't really know what you're going to get. And a lot of times, people, when they see people coming to their door that they don't know, they're very defensive. So
Sure.
I've tried to plot it out that way, in managing that. But it's all volunteers. We have not gotten to a point of paying canvassers. That's not completely off the table, but I'm trying to make it as personal as I possibly can when I'm going out door to door in businesses. But as we're moving forward over the next several months, we'll have multiple farmers markets and festivals and stuff like that we plan on attending and working and getting the signatures there as well. So it's been primarily volunteer based, and God bless my volunteers, because signature gathering is just not for the faint of heart.
So what are the platform issues that your campaign is putting forth?
So right now, the biggest issue is being anti-war. As a libertarian, I am very, very much so anti-war. I do not believe that we should be involving ourselves in everybody's business, which has really, in so many ways, I feel like created a lot of what we're seeing right now. America has kind of taken this position of being the world's police, and I feel like that has been almost to a detriment. And so I am very against getting involved in foreign wars, quite frankly, and unless we are in a situation where there is no option. And it's been interesting trying to navigate like this situation that we're seeing right in Ukraine, and it's so hard because you look at it and you say, well, from a human standpoint, right? Most humans that are good human beings, they want to help. And that comes in multiple different ways, whether it is giving money to these humanitarian groups that are helping, or whether it comes in the form of, people volunteer, actually quite literally volunteering. We've seen that throughout the world, actually, or, sending, again, humanitarian aid, or you have like Anonymous that's going around and like hacking all their stuff, it's so I believe as humans we should most certainly be offering aid just as people, and of course what's happening over there is horrifying, really. But then you get to the question of, well, should we involve our military in that, right? Should our people be sent over there to be involved in that? And at this juncture, I do not believe so. And we've seen, kind of interestingly enough, I was actually quite shocked to see it. It appears that our government is feeling the same way in regards to that, because they declined to do a no-fly zone over Ukraine, which of course would have required us to actively send people there, which in turn I think would have caused a huge boiling over. So, it's been very hard to navigate, but I am very much so rooted in the belief of, building up our protection here in the United States and getting us out of everywhere else, especially coming off the heels of a war in Afghanistan that, look at how that ended. And what was the justification? There really wasn't any. at the end of the day, when it was all said and done, there really wasn't any. And so you have a 20-year war where countless people, our people, died. And what was the result? I mean, now the government is back in the Taliban's hands. So, it's a very interesting thing to navigate. And of course, very complex, but I am very anti-war. Another thing that I am a huge advocate of is medical freedom. Of course, we've seen that coming off the heels of COVID, and it seems like the push for mandates of any kind are starting to go away, which I think is great. I am a huge believer that if people wanted to receive the vaccine or they wanted to, wear masks, of course, that absolutely, they should have that available to them. And I know several people that did have the vaccine, and I think that's great. That was a choice that they made for themselves and their families. I am very much so against a federal government forcing people to do that, which is what we were seeing. And that to me is quite scary when you have a government that is forcing people to really partake in a medical procedure. So, I'm very, very much so for medical freedom. School choice is another big one of mine as well. I'm very passionate about school choice. I have 8 children, and I homeschool them. And the reason why I homeschool them is because of the way our public school system seems to work. So, that we are lucky that we have that option and that we are able to homeschool the kids. But I feel like the federal government making these blanket statements or pushing these blanket things in education, specifically, of course, the Department of Education, is, to me, it actually kind of blows my mind, right? Because, you have the needs of different geographical regions within the United States are so different. My best comparison is, from New England. I actually lived in New Hampshire for several years, and most of those kids, they went into trades. That was a big thing in like northern New Hampshire, northern Vermont, and Maine, is going into some sort of trade profession. You didn't have necessarily this huge push for college. And so the schools up there, they did more so try to offer trades, like in high school and stuff like that. Now down in Georgia, for example, there is this huge push, for college. So, there's different needs for different geographical locations, but also the Department of Education's failures are pretty vast. I mean, my best example of that is Common Core math. There was this huge push of Common Core math, this whole new way to do math. I luckily was out of high school when that came about, barely, but I was out of high school. And they pushed and pushed and pushed, and, that was a thing. Well, they just, over the last year, are like, you know what, no, I don't think Common Core math is good anymore. So you have a whole generation, almost of kids that had to grow up doing this math that now is like, maybe not. So it's things like that. I am a huge proponent of leaving the schooling decisions at if it must be a state level, but I would much prefer it to be a local level and a local collaboration with parents. That doesn't even get into, of course, the school board issues we saw throughout COVID, with these local mandates or even, state mandates, and then, of course, federal, coming down and schools trying to navigate that. And so putting them in a really weird position. But then you had situations where, like in Washington, they were forcing kids to like sit outside. There has been multiple issues with parents like trying to discuss and work with boards of education and it being a huge issue. So, I am not a proponent of the Department of Education, and quite frankly would like to see it go. So that is another one of my platform planks. And there's multiple things, of course, I could go on and on that I am passionate about, especially now with what we're seeing with Ukraine. I feel like our immigration system in general is so broken. People are like, well, they should do it the right way. People, if they want to come here, they should do it the right way. Well, that's fine, great, but look at our system. It's so bogged down. It's so difficult to work through. How can you? How can you? And that only poses one issue, right? So then you get into situations like, again, what's happening in Ukraine. We should have been letting them come over here weeks ago. If they wanted to leave, which I forgot, I don't even know what the number was now, but I had read it earlier today, but it's in the hundreds of thousands of people have left, over the last week and they're fighting to try to get out of Ukraine, right? And they're having to walk to the borders of other countries. And, so we very clearly had some sort of intelligence that there was very likely going to be an issue. And so as that happened, we should have absolutely opened up and said, if you want to come here, we will take you. That is my sense. That, it for me, would be one way of providing aid, instead of saying, oh, well, now you're invaded. I hope you can come here, but I hope you can get here. This is like, I think most of the airports were either shut down, and a couple of them were bombed, or targeted over the course of a couple days. There was no getting out. There was no easy way to get out. So, I'm a huge advocate of immigration reform. I feel like we really do need that here in the United States, just in general. We're a melting pot. That's how our entire nation started. So it is weird to me when people have issues with immigration. But so I could take up so much of your time with that, but those are my major platform planks. And of course, with so much going on, there's so much to talk about, so there's the little things that of course come in, as that's happening.
So what is your campaign strategy? How are you going to get the word out about all these ideas that you've been talking about?
So the biggest thing we've been doing is, of course, utilizing social media. Everybody's on social media now, right? So we have most definitely built the groundwork as far as getting the message out on social media and building up that social media following. Like I said earlier, the local media, actually, really, I've had a lot of support out of Atlanta as well. So I don't necessarily consider Atlanta local. It's almost 2 hours away from me, but I have had support out of there as well on people reporting on me and my campaign, and that has also helped tremendously with getting the word out. As much as I hate signature requirements, and I think that they suck, at the same time, it does give me the opportunity to get out and, talk with people one-on-one. So while it is crappy, at the same time, I think it's a great opportunity in the sense that I am going out and I am connecting with people one-on-one and talking with them not only about my campaign, but also about, the Libertarian message. So we're utilizing that, of course, and engaging people. But also, I've just really been out and about. Is any events that I can find that resonate with me and things like that I have been working to go to in order just to, get my name out there and, again, get just the overall message, having those conversations, even with people that might not necessarily agree with everything that I stand for. You can always find commonality with most people. So, you can talk with people about something that they do agree about and have that conversation. So that has been how I've been working to get the word out as the campaign is progressing, and especially after we get past the primaries, which here happen in May. We'll look into advertising and stuff like that. But I really try to keep things, like I said, as personal as I can because I feel that's important. To me, when somebody is going to be a representative of somebody in any office, they need to be connected to the people, and because they are that voice of the people, right? And so if you're disconnected from them and disconnected from what's going on in the communities, then how can you be a representative? So, I like to keep things as personal as I can, but we will go forward with advertising. So that's kind of where we're at right now.
That's good. That's good. So are you doing this campaign by yourself, or do you have a team? It sounds like you have people out canvassing for you. Do you also have do you have a campaign staff that's volunteer? I assume you don't have a huge paid staff. What's your staff look like, or the people helping you out look like?
I have a fantastic team, actually. I'm very lucky. I feel like libertarians, just in general, have a hard time finding a team. At least I've seen that quite often, unless you're in a bigger race, which in my situation, I am in a bigger race. So, a lot of times these libertarians get out here and they're doing it on their own, and just managing everything on their own. And so the LP in general, has been working to mitigate that. The National Party has been doing all last year. They did several trainings for people that wanted to come out and just learn about what it's like to manage a campaign, learning to message, learning about fundraising, learning about engaging with people, things like that. And they offered that free of charge. So they went throughout the whole United States and offered these trainings. And several people did. I know here in Georgia we had a great turnout. We are growing infrastructure. The Libertarian Party is growing infrastructure for candidates in general that, maybe aren't these super large races, but, so that they can have some sort of support so they're not out here trying to do it all on their own. In fact, this year at the National Convention in May, they are also doing another training it's actually kind of an intensive. So that's really cool to see as well. It's very in-depth. And what they do is when people go through that training, they certify them through the party and they put them on their website so that people that need somebody, they can go and look. So it's really great that the infrastructure there is growing. But for me, all my entire team is volunteer based. So, which is really cool because, these people are devoting their time and energy to the campaign because they believe in it. Yeah. And I feel like that's such a huge statement versus paying, people to do it because I feel like it adds a whole different element to the entire campaign. Those people are there because they believe in you and they believe in what you're doing and they want to see you succeed and are putting in an obscene amount of time to see that happen. So, I have been incredibly blessed that I have a full team that's working on everything, just the things that you have to work on in a campaign, So I have gotten very lucky, but we have not taken on anybody paid. Nobody has ever asked, which again is so humbling. They're willing to give the time and energy to the campaign, and I think that is awesome and really is a unique attribute to third parties in general because most third parties, do struggle with things like that. And so it's cool when you have people that surround them and support them.
Yes, indeed. So what is your leadership style? How do you lead this staff of volunteers you have?
So I am very much so that The only thing I can see is like that meme where you have a boss and then you have a leader, right? A boss is somebody who tells everybody what to do and, has them do it. I am very much so a give people the tools and work with them so that they're growing, and working to build them up. I really feel like that's just who I am as a person, really. I've never been the type of person to, be this boss-like energy. I've always been more of a, okay, well, these are your goals, or this is our goal, this is what we're working towards, and what do you want to get out of this, and how can we get to that point? How can we grow? How can we do this? I'm really just trying hard to empower people. So that's how I work within my team, is working. Of course, I work directly with them. I try to do as much as the work as they're doing, because this, it is a team effort. I feel like anything you want to succeed is a team effort, right? So, I work with them in that regard. Of work to empower them and, have them grow. And we have great interpersonal relationships, I feel like, where if things come up, we can talk about them and we work through them and things like that. So that's just kind of, I think, who I am as a person. That's what I hope to bring to the table, if I am elected, is working with the people here and empowering their voice and building them up, but also taking that and having that voice heard in Washington and truly representing those people, but also, working within Congress to work towards the goals, that I hold dear, of course, and working as that collaborative team to get stuff done. So that's kind of how I am. I'm more of an empowerer. I like to empower people. I see myself, I guess, as a leader, but at the same time, not really. It's kind of weird that I'm not sure how to describe that, because I just see it as, we have to work together to get to the things we're trying to achieve.
Yes, it sounds like your leadership style is in alignment with your libertarian beliefs.
Yes, very much so. I am very libertarian, very, very libertarian to the core. When I found the party in 2015, I stumbled across it. I stumbled across a local affiliate, and I found them because I couldn't bring myself to vote for Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump. I just couldn't bring myself to do it. And so I was like, there has to be other, this can't be it, right? This just can't be it. And so I found this little local affiliate, and I started getting involved. And it was, of course, in that cycle, Gary Johnson was our presidential candidate. I got involved. I started, really learning the platform of the Libertarian Party, the party that is about self-accountability and self-responsibility, the party that is very much so about, building people up, I feel like, and, letting people do their thing and empowering them to do their thing. Sticking up for minority communities, that's something that I wholeheartedly believe in, because I think we're all equal, right? I don't feel like that should ever be a foreign concept. We are all humans. The more I grew within the party, the more I realized that the message just really resonated so wholeheartedly with me and just who I am as a person and how I operate. And it really, since then, I've been involved in, just local things, but it wasn't until 2020 I got super, super involved. And I actually ended up part of the executive committee for LP Georgia And then I worked on the Jorgensen campaign that entire election cycle. And then after the fact, was doing multiple things within LP Georgia and specifically working with candidates, and then, decided to run. So it's something that I believe so much in that I'm willing to put myself out there and, do this work that is hard work, just to even get to be on the ballot. And then moving forward, going through this race, and this race is a very interesting race just simply because of who it is. So, or who I'm running against. So, it's something that I believe so much in that I have been willing to, of course, put myself out there.
Sure. So for our audience out there, whether they live in Georgia, in your area, or elsewhere, how can they support your campaign?
The best way that they can support my campaign is by going to my website and donating. Right now, third parties in general, I think, struggle with fundraising, and I will be the first to say I am the worst fundraiser. And I think a lot of it is because I know how the economy is right now, right? And I am just a normal person like everybody else. I'm a small business owner. Like I said, I'm a mom of 8 kids. We don't have hundreds of thousands of dollars in the bank, right? I mean, we live literally paycheck to paycheck, and stretch that paycheck out. And with everything that's happening in the economy right now, I know we're hurting. So I know if we're hurting that, there's more people that are really hurting. So it's so hard for me to ask people, hey, I know that you're probably struggling just like I am, but can you throw like $20 to my campaign? Because that $20 can be, that can be groceries, that can be gas, that, you know what I mean? So I am probably the worst fundraiser there ever was, but the fact is that a campaign has to have money, and I'm luckily used to running campaigns on a shoestring budget, so that works out in my favor. But like next week, I have to go file my candidacy, and that's $5,220. Most people don't have $5,000 just like hanging around. So, so the best way people can help out is to go to angelapence.com/donate. And just,
I'm sorry, say that again.
It's angelapence.com/donate.
Okay.
And they can, if they're able, they can, throw a couple bucks my way. We're always looking for volunteers. So, if people have a skill set that they would like to contribute to the campaign, they can go to the website, and there's a form on the website that, they can put in their information and what their skill set is or how they would like to help out. And that will come directly to me. I think my campaign team has realized that because of just the way that I am, I try personally to respond to every email. So I get to it before my campaign folks do, because again, I love to connect with the people that are, actively engaging with my campaign. So the chances that they'll get a message back directly from me are quite high. So they can go through there, or they can get me on social media. My Twitter is Angela414, and it's Angela, like the word for FOR 14. Or they can go on Facebook, and it's Angela for Congress on Facebook. So those are my two main ones. I have an Instagram, but I am notoriously bad for checking Instagram, so that might not be the best place.
All right, excellent. Angela, thank you kindly for coming on the podcast today and sharing the exciting campaign that you're running.
I appreciate you so much for having me on here. I absolutely love talking with folks and talking about my campaign and, just talking about what's going on and, what we're trying to do down here and everything as a whole. So I appreciate you so much for having me on and allowing me to talk to, the folks that listen to the podcast.
Our pleasure. Our pleasure. Angela, all the best in your campaign. May the campaign go super well.
Thank you so, so much. I appreciate you.
Take care.
Take care. Thank you.
Bye.